Hello, thank you for stopping by. My name is Becky and this is Bex Reads, and today I want to have another discussion with you. Today I want to discuss with you the idea that some books aren't written for you and that you aren't the target demographic for some books. I wanted to discuss this because I've seen bookstagrammers and booktubers talk about how they don't feel like they can rate books lowly if they didn't enjoy them if they are beneath their age range. So if they're adults and they're reading YA, or typically it's middle grade, I hear this with. They'll read those books for some reason and then they go to share their thoughts on it and they'll be like, I'm not the target demographic for this book and I just don't feel comfortable giving it a 3-star rating because I didn't enjoy it. But yet, I see these same people who will then read another young adult or middle grade book and they will absolutely love it and they will give it 5 stars. Why is it that people can read a book that's not in their age range, love it, rave about it, recommend it, give it 5 stars on Goodreads, Amazon, whatnot, but then they go and they read a book that's a 3-star and they don't feel like they can give that same critique because it's not in the target demographic. This book wasn't written for them. I am somebody who reads a wide variety of books. I read picture books, I read middle grade, all the way up to erotica. And I do love middle grade. I enjoy seeing the fun adventures that kids can go on. And I don't ever have a problem with getting in that mindset of a 12-year-old going on an adventure. There are some middle grades that I've read and I just don't enjoy. I don't connect with the writing style of the book. I don't like the world that it's set up in. The characters aren't connecting with me in some way. And that's not because I'm an adult, because once again, I've also read middle grade that I've absolutely loved and I am able to connect with those characters. And when I read, I become that 12-year-old character and I can see myself imagining the world how they imagine it and feeling the things that they felt because I was once 12 years old. So I don't think it has anything to do with me not being in the target demographic of these books. Because if I can enjoy one and not enjoy the other, I think it has much more to say with the author's ability to tell a story and engage me as a reader despite my age. And this is going to lead me into who is the target demographic for books. If you go into a bookstore, who do you think that bookstore is putting books on the shelf for? They're putting it on the shelf for people with money. They're putting it on the shelf for people who will come in and spend money. Now, do some 12-year-olds and under get allowance and they will go into a bookstore and spend their money on books? Absolutely, sure. But who is the majority of people buying books? It's older teens up to adults. So in my opinion, the target demographic is you. You spending the money. You having the ability to read those books. Also, if you think about it, who's reviewing books? The vast majority of people who are reviewing books are older teens up to adults. They're not the 12-year-olds and under. I will often walk into a bookstore and I end up looking in the middle grade section because I do enjoy middle grade books. And there's nobody standing there policing me and being like, are you reading this book or are you buying it for somebody? And if I tell them, oh, I'm reading it, it's not like somebody's going to be like, oh, no, you can't buy this, you can't read this, you can't review this because these books aren't for you. Nobody's doing that. And aside from being the target demographic, I want to talk about something that I've seen recently that really annoyed me. Recently, it was a booktuber who I've never heard of before. I don't subscribe to their channel. I was just going through my home feed on YouTube and I saw this video pop up because it was discussing a book that I had read and I was like, oh, I want to hear somebody else's opinion on it. So I clicked on it. I'm going to be vague here. I'm not going to mention who the booktuber was or even what the book was because I'm not here to stir the pot. I'm just here to share my thoughts. But this booktuber was talking about this book and they really enjoyed it. And then they got to a segment of their video where they were reading low-star reviews of that book. And this person found Goodreads reviews. They shared the handle of the person who was reviewing this book. They were reading this review. And this review was very negative. The person who was reviewing did not enjoy the book that this booktuber enjoyed. And this booktuber said, that's because this book wasn't written for the reviewer. And if that was their opinion, it's because they didn't have the same experiences and they didn't know what the point of the book was. And that opinion right there just made me have no desire to even subscribe to this booktuber, because in my opinion, that's a very shitty opinion to have. Like, you can have that opinion all you want. I just think it's a really shitty opinion to have, and I don't support that opinion. Because to tell somebody that they can't write a negative review about a book because they don't have the same experiences or anything like that of the characters within the book is bullshit. Because if I can only review books where I have the same experiences as the characters, that is going to limit what I can have an opinion on about a book very, very much, okay? The whole point of books is to broaden your scope of understanding, to get new experiences through characters. That is often sometimes the only way people can get viewpoints and experiences outside of what they live. I think it is just very ignorant to tell somebody that a book that they have a negative opinion on isn't for them because they didn't share that same experience. I walk into a bookstore and I see a book on the shelf with a cover that captures my eye. And I don't read the synopsis. I just pick it up and I think, oh, that's an interesting cover. That's an interesting title. I'm going to buy this, take it home and read it. We all do that. We all have done that. So if I know nothing about this book and I just bought it because the cover appealed to me or the title appealed to me or something like that, I go home, I read this book, I finish reading it, and then I go and I leave a review for it that is negative because I just didn't enjoy it. Why would you expect me to know that the characters in this book experience something that I haven't just because I bought it based on the cover? Or let's say I pick that book up and I do read the synopsis. Sometimes the synopsises can be very vague. Sometimes they don't even have anything to do with the story. And I like what I read. And then I take it home. Once again, I read it, I finish it, I leave a negative review because I just didn't like certain aspects of that book. Why would you expect me to know that these characters have certain circumstances or experiences that I don't have based on the synopsis of a book? Now, let's say this author includes like content warnings or trigger warnings. Not everybody looks at those things. Even if there is a content warning or trigger warning page in a book, sometimes I overlook that because it's not the first page of the story. Oftentimes when I'm reading a book, I will flip to the very first page of the story and overlook the title page, the playlist, all that crap that comes before it. Okay, so sometimes I don't even notice that. And once again, if I read that book and I don't like that book, I should be able to write a negative review on that without somebody telling me this book wasn't written for you. Once again, I'm an adult with money. If I can go into a bookstore or if I have access to getting that book and the ability to read and consume that book, then that book was written for me. You don't have to have the same experiences as the characters or the content of the book to have an opinion on it. If that were true, imagine just, if you will, the white girl that I am, going into a bookstore and somebody like policing what I could buy and have an opinion on. And say I was going around and I picked up a book with a character who isn't white and I wanted to buy it and I go to the checkout. Can you imagine somebody being like, yeah, you're not going to have the same experiences as these characters, so you can't buy this book. Or, unless you enjoy this book, you can't have an opinion on it because you don't have the same experiences as this character. That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. But here's the kicker of this concept. In this booktube video, if the person who had written the review had loved it and raved about it, the person making the video wouldn't have had a problem at all. They wouldn't have told that person that that book wasn't written for them. But yet, if you had a 3-star or lower opinion, somebody would say, this book wasn't written for you and you just don't understand it because you didn't have the same experience. That's one reason that I have never done a reacting to negative reviews of my favorite book on my channel, is because it's none of my business what you think of a book. If I absolutely love a book and you absolutely hate a book and you write a scathing review on it, that's not my business. I don't care what your opinions are because I loved that book and I'm going to rave about it. I would never go and I would never share somebody's like glowing or scathing review of that book, share their name and everything, and then sit there and tell that person that that book wasn't written for them. I would never do that. I could totally disagree and be like, this book sucks, and if you think it's the best book ever, you're wrong. But I'm not going to be like, this book wasn't written for you. because it was written for you. You have the ability to consume the material and give an opinion on it. It was written for you, babe. It was. And I could see somebody pointing out a bad review if like they were saying something horrible about the author or saying something that was just racist or cruel or something like that. But the person who wrote this negative review didn't do that. They just stated that they didn't like the book for A, B, and C reasons. And then this booktuber had the nerve, the audacity, to not only include their handle in the review, but to also say that this book wasn't written for them because they didn't have the experience to understand the characters. And I wanted to give my 2 cents and see what your opinions were on this topic. Do you believe that there are some books that just aren't meant for certain readers? Do you believe that if a book is middle grade, that adults shouldn't read it and shouldn't give a review on it? Share your thoughts with me down in the comments. So thank you so much for listening to me rant and share my opinion on this. If you've made it this far in the video and don't have any comment to leave, could you just leave me a money emoji? Because as I mentioned, if you have the means to obtain books, you have the ability to review them. So until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and go get your hands on a book that's outside of your target demographic and see how you feel about it. Bye.